I think the best part of this story is I really never started this as a business. I really never said, hey, I'm building a business. Let's do this. Let's do that. I really, sometimes the path you're on, maybe not even the path you're thinking you're creating. And that's really what happened here.
Today's episode of The Pro Guide is brought to you by Small Pond Productions, the producers of this podcast. If you're looking to boost your brand's voice with professional end-to-end podcast production, whether it's an interview show or telling stories with audio, we walk you through every step of the process to make you sound great. Head to our website and download the free Podcasting Made Simple guide. 8 critical things you need to know before launching your brand's podcast. It's all available at smallpond.productions. Well, welcome everybody to this episode of The Pro Guide, where we interview thought leaders in business, technology, and creativity. And my guest today started a company at a kitchen table in her 50s, mixing chalk paint, selling it by the pint on eBay while her teenage son packs the boxes. And today the company moves tens of millions of dollars a year, and Forbes called her the Queen of Paint. So Paula Blankenship, welcome to The Pro Guide. We're honored to have you.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you for having me. I can't wait to share my story with your audience here.
Well, I'd love that, actually. Let's take you back to the kitchen table. What was the specific moment that you can think of where this stopped being a project to keep your son busy, and then becomes a real business that's inside of your head? And you're like, you know what, this is actually something real here. I
think the best part of this story is I really never started this as a business. I really never said, hey, I'm building a business. Let's do this. Let's do that. I really, sometimes the path you're on, maybe not even the path you're thinking you're creating. And that's really what happened here. I was really just trying to do something. I had moved my teenage son to Louisville, Kentucky here to a school that I had gone on a blind date and discovered from someone who told me about this awesome school. And I thought, too bad I don't live there. And then about 2 minutes into that, in my head, I thought, I'm the only one preventing that, right? I'm a single mother. I could do anything I wanted to do. And I moved him here, and he was all for it for about 2 minutes until he realized it was a boys' school, no girls. And, that was his real thrust in going to school to begin with. He was a lot like me. I dropped out of high school, and I thought, wow, I am raising my twin here. This is not good. I need to do something about that. Hopefully this school would get him motivated to actually bring home a book, of which he did not do. So all that said, I wanted to aim the arrow just a little bit higher than I had my own. And I brought him here, and he was angry at me about 2 or 3 weeks into it. And it was just really hard to get him to go to school. He was about 6'3" in the 9th grade. So he thought he was my boss, and he kind of was a little bit. But all that said, I started this really to keep him busy in the afternoons when I would pick him up, so he would not be bemoaning the fact that we had left our hometown. I thought, if I can just keep him busy, he'll shut up. And so I did that. I had painted some things in our home, and I had shared them on Facebook at the time. It was just one image, it was a photo. And I'd put it up there, things I had painted, because like everybody else, I was sharing food and stuff, stuff everybody else shares. It was my personal page. So people said, how did you do that? How did you paint that? And I thought that was just something everybody did. So I realized there was a wealth of people out there that had never picked up a paintbrush. And I thought, I'll use that. Maybe this is a teaching opportunity, not even thinking about a business at that point. And so the more I talked about it, the more questions I got from all over the country during the night, during the, whatever. And I thought, wow, Facebook is touching people all over the country. Again, Facebook's very new, and nobody was thinking about it in terms of a place to launch a business or even talk about business things. And I wasn't either. So all of these things were just kind of light bulb moments for me. And I thought, well, maybe people would buy it if it was a paint. Maybe that's what I should do, is just kind of maybe make a paint so I can understand what I'm talking about and talk about this paint, not about other people's products and putting people on a wild goose chase to try to figure out what I'm using. And so that's kind of where the brainchild started, was right there. And the more I started into it, the more I realized I kind of thought the chalk paint type bubble was over. And most people had already kind of done that, and stopped because it was a lot of labor. You had to put a wax on it and all kinds of things that needed to kind of be a taught process. And that's what I was painting with. So I thought that had kind of happened. So I didn't really want to pick up and run from there, but that is what I did. I did start right there. And I thought, well, I don't know how to build a website. and there wasn't these website pre-built frameworks that you could go to. And I didn't know how to do all of that. There was one called Wix at the time, and I did end up building an informational website, not an e-commerce site, obviously, but I did put the products up there, and I had at least built that part. But I thought, where could I make an e-commerce website? My favorite, eBay. So I put the product on eBay, and I was so horrified to put it out there. And because I was worried about the reviews. And finally, when I did read the reviews after it began to sell like crazy, I was like, what is going on? Maybe these reviews are good. I'll go read them. And they were phenomenal. You don't.
Yeah.
Wanted to
You
know.
don't know.
No, I didn't want to know. I thought, what if they're terrible? And so it just made me kind of put one foot in front of the other. And it wasn't where I was sitting back and going, wow, I hope this works. My goal was to sell $100 a day in product. I thought if I sell $100 a day, that'll replace the goods, pay him a little bit, and we'll just stay busy here from 3 o'clock till 6, 7, 8 o'clock in the evening. And I did $100 a day, went to $250 a day. Finally, the mail lady said, listen, I can't pick this up any longer. That made me take another step. And I ended up getting a flex space that was about 1,500 square feet in a little industrial park near me. And about 8 months, I outgrew that. And it was just a feeding frenzy in a way. And I couldn't believe it. And it was all because I fueled that interest with the post I was doing on Facebook. So Facebook, then I thought, wow, then they made a video step. They started allowing videos, which was, again, another great opportunity for me. All this was very much in a timing mode, So when that happened, I thought, I'm going to use Facebook as my own QVC. Start using it to teach people how to paint. And I'll put these videos up. And then even better, Facebook says, we're going to introduce a live format. So now that's where the connection came. That's where the real heart of the business came. My teaching live and simplifying things for folks. And then I understood then there was a real issue with the product, meaning it had to be taught. I needed to come up with a product that didn't have to have all this teaching mechanism, help people understand that they could paint anything with X, Y, and Z. They didn't have to have all these layers and all that. And so that's when I kind of began to understand what I needed to do. And I reached out and found a chemist from Dowell and developed the all-in-one paint product right there. It took me about 2 years to develop that. So there you go. That's it in a nutshell.
Yeah, no, what a phenomenal arc. And there's a couple of pieces of that I'd love to take side trips off into, especially the Facebook growth, the direct to consumer spaces there. Your story very much is one of, my mentor has always said, bloom where you're planted. And it very much feels, that way, where it's like, there's not necessarily the master plan, but man, all this fortuitous timing meets, you're just working with what you have where you're at, which is I think a great way to go about it. Talk to me a little bit about the all-in-one. How did you turn, people, you kind of land on this idea that the education component, people don't necessarily always fear the painting as much as the prep work that shows up in there. How do you turn that frustration into, something that is marketable without the chemistry background? Talk to us about this partnership with Dow and how you developed the all-in-one paint there.
Well, again, bloom where you're planted. That's very true. And I think a lot of people today are sometimes hearing all kinds of entrepreneurs speak online, and especially a lot of people who are making a living online, teaching how to be X, Y, and Z entrepreneur type thing. I think there's a lot of misgivings there. I do believe that it takes effort on your part. It's not just going to come to you because you do these certain steps. I believe you really have to be proactive in those things. And I did that. What I did was I researched and found that one of the board members for Do It Best Hardware, which is a hardware chain, a buying group, basically. If you're a mom and pop, you can buy into the Do It Best and fly that flag. And then you can use their warehouse program to get products in without meeting minimums. A truck delivers every day. I found out that board member lived and had a store here in Louisville. And I approached him, Jim Lee here is his name. And I asked Jim, could he allow me to put my paint product in his store? And he did. He let me put a beautiful display there with a video teaching how to use it. Now, this was the chalk paint. And he said, yes, you can come to the ladies' night. You can do all the things just here in my store. And I did all that. And it was really like a research group for me. And I realized this ain't going to work real quick because it was next to, in the paint area of his store, small store. But in that area was all the other big brands, Benjamin Moore and all of that. Yeah. And the paint guy behind the counter was also never going to recommend, hey, paint in your kitchen cabinets. Go over there and get that little paint guy on the shelf over there. Not going to happen. So I saw already it was never going to break through in retail. So that's really what pushed me to find out, let's make this product simple. Let's get rid of all the layers, all the steps. Let's give people a durable finish and flexible finish that will paint literally any surface, because that's what I really wanted, was a product that would bond without a primer, that would sustain itself indoors and outdoors without a sealer. And I'm asking a lot of things, but I had also been doing my research to find out what resins and technology had changed in the resin market in the last 20 years, and huge advancements there had came about in the coatings industry. Lots of companies embraced it. Lots of companies didn't. If you think about Sherwin-Williams or Benjamin Moore or PPG, some of those companies that have all these tried and true painters that have been using all of these old school processes, now you come out with a paint that would usurp all of those. Those guys would not be very happy about that. They want to charge you $7,000 and $10,000 to paint your cabinets. So now all of a sudden there's a product that comes out that doesn't require all of that. So those brands are really not going to be bringing out products to eliminate products. So when I saw that and I understood that, I thought, wow, why this is my crack in the door. This is where my foot can go in the door. I'm going to talk to the consumer. And guess what? The internet is my oasis. I don't need a retailer. I don't need anybody to tell my story, because I need to tell this story and I need to sell it direct to the consumer. So that's exactly what I did. And lo and behold, along comes another big partner for us called the little elephant in the room called Amazon. So all of those things together, back to perfect timing. And, I never dreamed that paint was going to be my ticket to the world, but obviously paint's been my ticket to the world. So
yeah. I mean, there's a little bit of the oh by the way factor there. I call it the oh by the way factor, where it's like, people are doing great things with their lives, and they just happen to be using either your product or the thing, as the vehicle to do that. But really, the highlights on this story, and I feel like that. The direct to consumer play that you're doing there, most people wouldn't follow that path. I need to get into all the Walmarts and into all the stores in order to have the biggest impact. And for you to say, I don't think that's going to work for me, even that early on in the game up front, to say, I've seen a couple of examples of this in action, and there's an education factor. There's also a couple of other maybe intangibles that I'd like to see if you could speak to for a second as well, where, you've got this Facebook group that, I think I read somewhere it's like out engages or the engagements levels like 20x what it would be if it were something different than that. What are you doing? What are you doing in these groups that maybe other brands aren't, that creates this style of loyalty? I heard you kind of allude to earlier. You're answering questions at 2 a.m. in the morning about paint in the early days. So there's a loyalty factor there. Speak a little bit about that.
Well, again, our counterparts, our competitors, we're not even nowhere near to even call ourselves a competitor, but the other brands are certainly not doing that. They don't want the influence of people commenting on their product and asking questions to where people could see the live answers when there's failures. And, painting is always going to produce failures to a certain degree, because people are painting over a zillion different things using all their different ways they go about doing it. Some use your products right. Some use them their own way. Some never read the directions. There's always going to be product failures out there. So brands like the big brands, they don't post or don't have these groups because they don't want to have these groups. And we've been building that group for all the years. I don't want to gloss over the fact that I did start out selling to the hardware chains and to mom and pops. I learned really quickly in 2016, we were going broke. And that's how I learned that I wanted to embrace the internet and sell direct to the consumer, because I finally got my product on a shelf at Do It Best and Ace Hardware. All those things were starting to happen for us. And I realized that it was the same scenario I was already in. It was still up to me to educate the consumer. And I thought, if I'm going to educate them, why am I sitting it on a shelf? Why do I need to go through all of this headache and expense? Let me just make a deal with the people who are buying it already. And if they want to find it, they don't have to go hunt it. Let's just send it to them. So that's when we created a website. Yeah.
It's always like, don't make it harder than it has to be.
Well, we were preventing success. We were our own roadblock. So if there's other brands or other people listening out there who have a brand or are considering retail, have you ever watched Shark Tank? I loved that, because Shark Tank was solidify everything I was thinking internally to myself. I would see great brands get on there and they'd say, Well, we did a Kickstarter, and now we are selling it direct to the consumer. But our goal is to get it in retail. Yeah.
Mm. Mm-mm. Nope.
I call my business a cash flow business. Retail is a cash suck business. So if you want to finance people's inventory, pay you whenever they can or when they get ready to, that's what you do if you want to get in the retail business. And you have to have all that money up front or somebody to capitalize your business. You got to take on partners and VCs and all that. If you put it into the consumer market and you sell direct, you get your money every day. So you're in a cash flow business. You never have to worry about money again. Every time I sell something, we get paid. So there's nothing better than that I can think of,
Yeah. Yeah. And you mentioned just a little bit ago about the Amazon FBA factor as well. There is the plus of the proximity of knowing somebody. Is there any other levers that you would suggest somebody to pull in selling physical product from Amazon? Any other go-to pieces of advice outside of like, hey, knowing somebody is helpful, but also take this into consideration as well?
Well, when we started on Amazon, we knew no one. The way you get to know people at Amazon is sell some damn product. Then you'll get to know them. That's how that works.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Not in the inverse. If you don't ring their bell, they're not ringing yours. So I can promise you that is because we've sold a lot of product and they see us as a valuable partner. So they want to increase that partnership. So what I would suggest and the way that works is this: you have to run a business alongside of, you have to keep your own website up. You have to keep your own eggs in your basket along with the Amazon basket. So we drive organic growth for our products to Amazon. It's not ads and generating ads. So if you are thinking you're going to just run over to put your products in FBA and do ads, the ads are so expensive and there's so many other millions of parties doing that. You can never, ever, ever outrun that. You have to have your own organic reach from your own social media and whatever you're doing there with creators, whoever is helping you. If it's user-generated content, whatever it is, you have to have the organic reach before you ever go to Amazon. I see people doing that in the inverse. You will fail doing that because Amazon ads will eat your lunch.
Helpful advice. Helpful advice. Anybody that's willing to listen. Let me shift into the book as well. Just Open the Jar, a DIY path to the life that you love without blowing up everything to start over. For somebody that feels maybe a little bit stuck, but isn't, I'm not yet in the space where I'm willing to like burn it all down. What is that first smallest jar that you would suggest that somebody starts to open?
Well, I think it's good to point this out. We took a big risk and a big gamble to give our first sample of product away to customers. Not only do they get to try the paint, but they also get our color card, which is sprayed on. It's actually the paint on the card. So just like you go to the Home Depot or Lowe's or whatever, you pick up those color cards, we send you out our 30 best colors on this sheet of paper. And now you can shop in your underwear from home if you want to and buy the paint. Where before you'd had to go get it or whatever, and you got to go get the competitor's brand. That is the customer acquisition for us is the biggest thing that we ever did. It was a very expensive thing to do. The color card alone was expensive, but that launched the ship. And that helped us get, many, many, many years of acquiring customers' information, having all of the way to communicate with our customers and knowing who they are. You don't get that on Amazon. So back to that, what we said earlier, if you are building a brand on Amazon, you do not know one single one of your customers. If you're building it at retail, same. You do not know your customers. If you build a direct to the consumer business, you know who they are. You know who you're talking to, who's buying what. You have all of that data. And if you recall back in the day, you used to hear, what's the most important thing that people will control? Data, information. If you don't have that, you are building a business you are building it on sand. If you're building it on data, information that you own and control, have that mailing list, have that text list. That is something that will help you actually have something in your hand when all these things fall apart, or if you happen to get divested from Amazon, you make mistakes or whatever, and they take you off, your business would be over. So you can't put all your eggs in that basket. It is a fabulous place to do business, but you have to also remember it is a beast and it requires a lot of your assets. And if you don't have those available, it's too costly for you to dabble on Amazon. You either got to rock and roll with it or you can't do it. You can't just put a toe in the water.
Let me ask one more question from maybe two more because gosh, this is so good, Paul. from 7 million to reported over 100 million. What broke along the way? What scaling mistake would you warn other people about? You just said eggs in one basket. I think that's hard-won wisdom,
Oh,
because
absolutely.
if that
That's a
happens, it sinks part of your ship for sure. But what
evaluation.
others? Mm,
Evaluation of 100. Our sales are about 31 million right now. So, but we're at a very pivotal point in our business. I spoke to you earlier about creating our own manufacturing plant. About 2.5 years ago, we purchased a company, a 75-year-old paint manufacturer here in Louisville that had been making our paint for the last 7 years. With that, we acquired not only our IP, our knowledge of how we make the paint, also the manpower to do it. People aren't going to school today to learn how to make paint. This is a very much an industrial business, a dirty business. Acquiring that gave us all of those assets. And about 6-8 months into that, we realized that we had bought a lot of old equipment and we needed to close those facilities down and move it all to Taylorsville. And so we've been in the process of building all of those manufacturing plants here on our campus, 17-acre campus here in Taylorsville. So all those men are moving down here, and just a very rewarding, very rewarding to do an old legacy business like that was really on its last leg, and really reinvigorate that business. We're an ESOP here in 2021. Our employees are 49% owners of everything we do here. So all of those folks in their 50s and so on, they will participate in the upside of whatever we do here in the next few years. My husband and I are reaching a point that we have to start thinking about retiring at some point. So we're going to sell the remaining shares of the business to the ESOP so they will own it in its entirety. So anyway, hopefully, yeah, that'll be a great thing for them.
And the security of knowing, there's just not like a cliff somewhere off in the future. We know exactly how this thing is going to continue to go and grow, and what the future looks like. That's so invaluable. For somebody that's building a products company that you only learn by doing it. Last question. What's something that you would say, this actually surprised us in doing this? It doesn't necessarily have to be paint, but just in business in general, or paint specifically.
You can unpack how much it surprised us. It's just... It is, to go back and what I said earlier, this was not something I set out on a mission to do. It wasn't a dream I had. It's, let's build a major manufacturing plant and make paint. At this age, I used to joke and say, I don't want to be the landlord of Taylorsville. Well, I'm the landlord of Taylorsville. There is no doubt about it. I don't know what these buildings would ever become if they weren't being utilized by us. And at some point, someone may have to think about that. But I'm not going to at this moment. But I didn't really see myself in the early days of this getting to where we are today. I was just, again, trying to do something to keep my son busy. And I kept seeing more of it unfolding. And I started, and, Forbes gave me this title of Queen of Paint in about 2016 or 17. And I thought, wow, it doesn't take much to be the queen. If that's my title.
That's what the bar is. No, yeah.
I think I've actually walked into that. This plant that we're building, I think it's good to note here, Andrew, that it's the first U.S. paint plant built in 25 years. And
no kidding.
To hear that because they think, these other big companies all make their paint here. Well, they don't. They make it in India and China, and they bring it home and put their label on it, but they're not making it here, and they haven't for a lot of years. And they haven't been putting money back into manufacturing here because it's so much cheaper to make it overseas. I should say that with a past tense, it was, but because of duties, tariffs, and such, those things are changing pretty rapidly. So a lot of those guys will come back home. I don't know who and when and if, but I know we're here and we're very proud to be doing that. So.
Incredible. Paula, I've loved this conversation so much. The book has just opened the jar. How can folks stay in your orbit or, begin to be in your orbit if they aren't already? A couple of ways that they can do that.
Well, I would love for them to visit our website at allinOnePaint.com, claim a free sample there, start using the product, try it, see if you like it, and open that jar. Just open that jar. That is where the journey begins. We've seen so many people, women and men, open that little sample jar that they think is, maybe just a token of whatever, 8 ounces. How could it do much? Well, that little 8 ounces will paint a front door. It will paint a vanity in their bathroom. It will paint a piece of furniture maybe they've cast away in the garage. Seeing that has inspired thousands upon thousands of people to think not about me and my paint, but about how it changes their world. Lots of folks, 70, 80 years old. You wouldn't even believe when I tell you this, that it's even true, that will say, I thought I had to live with this green for the rest of my life. I thought I had to live in these blues and these, whatever this doldrums are, because financially they couldn't afford to or didn't even want to. Even if they could financially change it, they didn't want to go through a renovation. But they were living in some pretty dowdy situations. They take that sample jar or they paint something and their whole world opens up. And I hate to say that it's all because of paint, but it's really just taking the lid off of something and trying it, and really not always second guessing it, but just try something different. You never know what it's going to do for you and your life. And if I hadn't seen it over thousands of times, I get personal letters, I get cards, I get all kinds of things, gifts in the mail that people say, this changed my world. This let me know that I am the master of this universe. And I can do that. If I'll just take that lid off. A lot of people get it and never open the jar. And we see that also. I will see people in this 500,000 group that we have on Facebook that will say, well, I've had the sample for 3 years. I finally opened the jar. Look at what I did. I'm so sad I didn't do it before. That's the comments that we get all the time, daily. It's a daily thing. So that's what compelled me to write the book. And of course, the title came from that right there. Just open the jar. You don't know what's beyond that. And the confidence builder that it is, it's so much more than paint.
So much more than paint. I love that you mentioned, I don't know if paint is what I should hang my hat on or not, but really there's this thread of new beginnings that shows up here. And I think it's such a cool thing. Bigger than paint, for sure. Honored, Paula, to have you hang out with us today. This has been great. So respect your time. Just appreciate you being here and sharing some easily, but also some pretty hard fought one wisdom as well.
Thank you. So glad to be here.
And our thanks to all of you for listening. If you're looking for a quick way to make our day, a review in iTunes or subscribing to this podcast would mean the world to us. Our thanks to Small Pond Productions for sponsoring. And this was The Pro Guide. Learn from leaders, change your life. See you, everybody.